The words cut through the dinner conversation like a knife through silence. We were sitting around the table at Dad's house for what was supposed to be a memorial dinner for our mother. Family photos covered the walls. Her favorite candles burned on the mantel. And then my sister Tessa stood up, wine glass raised, and said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Marley always plays the victim. Always has, always will. 12 people stared at me. Cousins. Aunts. Uncles. Dad. All waiting to see how I'd react. My face burned. My hands trembled in my lap. I forced a smile, the kind that says I'm fine when I'm absolutely not, and excused myself to the bathroom. I stood in front of the mirror, gripping the sink, trying to breathe. How did she still have this power over me? After 32 years, how could one sentence from Tessa make me feel like I was nothing? Then I heard her voice through the door. She was laughing with someone in the hallway, probably my aunt. She'll never know what I did. My blood went cold. The words were quiet, almost careless. But I heard them, and something inside me shifted. I stepped outside into the cold night air, heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my aunt. You need to let the inheritance go. Let it go. That's what everyone kept saying. Let it go. Move on. Stop making things difficult. But how could I let go of something that never made sense in the first place? My name is Marley, and apparently, I'm the family villain. Growing up, it was always Tessa this, Tessa that. Tessa got straight A's. Tessa was beautiful. Tessa knew how to handle people. I was just the younger sister who tried too hard and never quite measured up. When our mother got sick, Tessa took charge. She handled the doctors, the bills, the funeral arrangements. Everyone praised her strength. And I was the emotional one. The one who cried too much. The one who couldn't handle reality. But something wasn't right. And I was finally ready to stop pretending I didn't notice. The lawyer's office was cold and formal. We sat across from Mr. Harrison 3 weeks after Mom's funeral. Tessa wore black, perfectly composed, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I wore jeans and an old sweater, feeling small and unprepared. Mr. Harrison explained the will. The house would be sold. Proceeds split between us. Medical debt would be covered first. Everything seemed straightforward. But when I started to ask a question, Tessa squeezed my knee under the table, hard. Her nails dug into my skin through my jeans. Marley understands, she said smoothly. Don't you, sweetie? I nodded. Because that's what I always did. I nodded and stayed quiet and let her speak for both of us. Months passed. The house sold. Tessa told me the medical debt took most of the money. We'd each get a small amount, maybe $5,000. It seemed low, but I didn't know how these things worked. And questioning Tessa always made me feel stupid. Then one afternoon, I was organizing Mom's medical files for my own records. And I found it. A stamped receipt showing all medical debt paid in full, 6 months before she died. I called Tessa immediately. My hands shook as I held the phone. There's something wrong with the inheritance, I said. The medical debt was already paid. Where did the money go? She laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A dismissive one. Marley, you're confused. Again. I have the receipt right here. You're misreading it. Trust me, I handled everything. You don't understand these things. But... She cut me off, her voice turning soft and concerned. Sweetie, I know you're grieving. I am too. But you're making this harder than it needs to be. Let me come over. We'll go through it together. When she arrived, she hugged me tight. Her fake nails dug into my back through my shirt, just like they had under the table at the lawyer's office. She explained everything in that patient voice she used when talking to children. By the end, I felt stupid for even questioning her. But after she left, I sat alone in the quiet. And for the first time, I didn't believe her. Thanksgiving came. The whole family gathered at my aunt's house. I tried to act normal, tried to participate, tried to smile. But Tessa made sure everyone knew something was wrong with me. Marley's been obsessed with the inheritance, she said casually, cutting her turkey. I'm worried about her. Eyes turned to me. I felt my face heat up. She's always been a little emotionally unstable, Tessa continued, reaching over to pat my hand. Remember when she had that depression episode in college? I think it's happening again. I wanted to scream. I wanted to defend myself. But my throat closed up. I just sat there, shrinking into my chair, while everyone nodded sympathetically at Tessa. Poor Tessa, dealing with her difficult sister. Poor Tessa, so patient and kind. Her husband avoided looking at me the entire meal. And I wondered, did he know something? Did he see through her the way I was starting to? I worked at a small accounting firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, but I was good at my job. One afternoon, I was on the phone with my bank, trying to understand some of Mom's old statements. My coworker Jenna walked by and overheard part of the conversation. After I hung up, she leaned against my cubicle. Your mom's house was on Maple Street, right? The blue one with the porch. Yeah, how'd you know? My cousin looked at it before it sold. She said the listing price was way higher than what they ended up accepting. Like, significantly higher. My stomach dropped. How much higher? She shrugged. I think it was listed at $400,000. She couldn't afford it, so she didn't bid. But I remember thinking it was a beautiful house for that price. $400,000. Tessa had told me it sold for $200,000. Said it was a bad market. Said we were lucky to get that much. I pulled up the public records that night. The house sold for $385,000. I offered to help clean out the house before the new owners took possession. Tessa was thrilled, probably relieved I seemed to be letting things go. We spent a Saturday sorting through Mom's belongings. Dishes, furniture, photo albums. Every item held a memory. Why don't you take the attic? Tessa suggested. I'll handle down here. There's nothing important up there anyway, just old Christmas decorations and stuff. The attic was dusty and cramped. Boxes everywhere, labeled in Mom's handwriting. I moved carefully, trying not to step on anything. Then my foot hit a loose floorboard. It creaked and shifted under my weight. I knelt down and pried it up. Beneath it, wedged into the space between joists, was a rusted metal lockbox. Small, maybe the size of a shoebox. My heart started racing. I grabbed it quickly and shoved it into my bag before Tessa could come upstairs. That night, I held it in my lap, staring at the lock. What was inside? Why was it hidden? And why did I feel like I was doing something wrong by finding it? The lockbox sat on my kitchen table for 3 days before I worked up the courage to open it. I tried prying it, picking the lock with a bobby pin, even considered taking it to a locksmith. Finally, I used a hammer and screwdriver to break the rusty hinge. Inside were papers, letters, documents. And on the inside of the lid, etched in Mom's shaky handwriting, were 4 words. For Marley, trust yourself. My eyes filled with tears. I hadn't heard her voice in months, but seeing her words felt like she was right there with me. I pulled out the first letter. It was dated 2 months before she died. My darling Marley, it began. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I need you to know something important. I've tried to protect you your whole life, but I can't anymore. Tessa is not who you think she is. Be careful. Protect yourself. Don't let her make you doubt what you know is true. I love you. Always. Mom. I sobbed on my kitchen floor, clutching the letter to my chest. I read through the other letters slowly. Each one revealed a little more. Mom had suspected Tessa was hiding things. Mom had noticed money missing from her own accounts in her final months. Mom had tried to confront Tessa, but was told she was confused from the medication. My hands shook as I reached the bottom of the box. There was an envelope labeled in thick black marker, Property Documents. I opened it carefully. Inside were official statements from the lawyer's office. The house sale proceeds, listed clearly. $385,000. Medical expenses, already paid months before, just like I'd suspected. The remaining funds were to be split 50-50 between Tessa and me. But here's what made my blood run cold. There were bank account statements. An account in my name that I'd never opened. An account containing $192,000. My inheritance. Sitting there. Untouched. Except for one thing. The signature on the account access forms wasn't mine. It was a forgery. A decent one, but definitely not mine. And the only person who would have had access to forge my signature was Tessa. I stared at the documents for hours, my mind spinning. So the money existed. My inheritance was real. But Tessa had forged my signature to access it, or at least tried to. The account was frozen, pending secondary authentication that had never been provided, which meant the money was still there, sitting in an account I didn't know existed. While Tessa told me there was nothing left, the rage that built inside me wasn't loud or explosive. It was cold, calculated, quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I didn't tell anyone. I just started planning. First, I made copies of everything. Then I scanned every document and uploaded them to 3 separate cloud storage accounts. Then I locked the originals in a safe deposit box at a different bank than the one holding my inheritance. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because I knew exactly what would happen. She'd gaslight me, twist my words, make me doubt myself, call me dramatic. And this time, I wasn't giving her that power. The next morning, I went to the bank where the mystery account was held. I brought every piece of identification I owned, plus the documents from the lockbox. The banker looked confused when I explained the situation, but after reviewing everything, she confirmed it. The account was real. The money was real.
And it was legally mine.
We've been trying to reach you for months, she said, but the contact information on file was incorrect. I looked at the contact form. Tessa's phone number. Tessa's email address. She'd set it up, so any notifications about the account would go to her, not me. I need to secure this account immediately, I said. Change all contact information. Freeze any access that isn't directly from me. The banker nodded and started typing. We'll send notifications to anyone previously listed as having access or information rights. Perfect, I said calmly. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Tessa. I let it go to voicemail. She called again.
And again.
Finally, a text appeared. We need to talk. Now. I agreed to meet her at a cafe downtown the next afternoon. Neutral ground. Public space. Witnesses. I arrived early, ordered water, and waited. She walked in 15 minutes late, wearing designer clothes I couldn't afford and carrying a purse that cost more than my rent. She sat down with a sympathetic smile. Marley, sweetie, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I said nothing, just sipped my water. The bank called me. They said you were asking about accounts and making changes. I don't want you to get confused. I'm not confused, I said quietly. Her smile faltered. Honey, I know you're upset about the inheritance, but everything was handled properly. I promise. Then why is there an account with my inheritance sitting in it? An account you never told me about. Her face went pale. Just for a second. Then she recovered, laughing lightly. Oh, that account. I was going to tell you about it, but I wanted to wait until... Until what? Until I never found out. Her expression hardened. Be very careful, Marley. You don't want to accuse me of something you'll regret. I leaned back in my chair.
Calm. Steady.
I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just protecting what's mine. She stood up abruptly. If you try to sue me, you'll lose. I'll make sure of it. And she walked out. The next day, I received a letter from her lawyer. It threatened legal action if I continued to harass her or make false accusations about the estate. It accused me of being mentally unstable and suggested I seek professional help. I read it calmly, then forwarded it to the lawyer I'd already hired. Yes, I'd hired a lawyer. While Tessa was busy threatening me, I was busy building a case. My lawyer called me that evening. This is textbook intimidation, and it's going to backfire on her. Keep every communication. Don't respond to her directly. Let me handle it. So I did. I stayed silent. Didn't defend myself. Didn't engage. Just let her think she'd won. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed a formal complaint about the forged signature, requested a full audit of the estate, submitted Mom's letters as evidence of suspected financial manipulation. Tessa had no idea what was coming. 2 weeks later, we were back at Mr. Harrison's office. This time, Tessa didn't look composed. She looked furious. Her lawyer sat beside her, stone-faced. My lawyer sat beside me, calm and prepared. Mr. Harrison reviewed the documents I'd submitted. The letters, the forged signature, the account statements. When he finished, he looked at Tessa with something I'd never seen anyone give her before: disappointment. Miss Tessa, can you explain why your sister's inheritance was placed in an account she wasn't notified about? It was for her protection, Tessa said quickly. Marley isn't good with money. I was holding it until she was ready. For 9 months. Yes. Without telling her? Silence. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. These are copies of the forged documents. You'll notice the signature doesn't match any of Ms. Marley's official signatures on file. We're prepared to pursue fraud charges if necessary. Tessa's face drained of color. Her lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head violently. Then she looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just stood up, thanked Mr. Harrison for his time, and walked out of the office. My lawyer followed, telling me we'd won the first round. That Tessa would likely settle to avoid criminal charges. But I wasn't thinking about winning or losing. I was thinking about how small she'd looked, how scared, and how powerful I felt. Not because I'd hurt her, but because I'd finally stopped letting her hurt me. That night, the family group chat exploded. Tessa's version of events painted her as the victim of my greed and manipulation. She said I was mentally unwell, that I'd always been jealous of her, that I was tearing the family apart over money. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. My aunt uninvited me from Christmas. My uncle sent a long message about family loyalty. Even Dad stayed silent, which somehow hurt worse than anything. I closed the group chat and didn't respond. Not a single word. For weeks, the messages kept coming. Accusations. Guilt trips. Lectures about how family should stick together. How I was being vindictive. How I'd regret this someday. But I said nothing. No explanations. No defenses. I just let them talk. Because here's what Tessa didn't realize. Every message she sent, every lie she told, every story she spread was now being documented by my lawyer. She was building my case for me. One afternoon, my aunt sent me a screenshot. Tessa had posted in a private family Facebook group claiming I'd stolen from her, that I'd forged documents and was trying to frame her for something she didn't do. The irony was almost funny. Almost. My lawyer sent a formal letter to everyone in the family group chat. It simply stated that legal proceedings were underway, that all communication was being documented, and that anyone making defamatory statements could be held liable. The messages stopped. Suddenly. Completely. What I didn't know, but found out later, was that Tessa's perfect life was starting to crack in other ways too. Friends started distancing themselves. People at her country club stopped inviting her to events. Rumors spread at her kids' PTA meetings. Turns out, when you spend years cultivating a reputation as the perfect daughter, perfect wife, perfect mother, people notice when the mask slips. And they talk. Her boss requested a meeting about ethical concerns. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint about financial discrepancies in a charity account she managed at work. Nothing proven yet, but the investigation had started. I didn't start those rumors. I didn't file that complaint. I just existed. And somehow, that was enough for the truth to start surfacing on its own. My lawyer called with an update. The estate audit is revealing some interesting things. Seems your sister also mishandled funds while serving as your father's power of attorney during your mother's illness. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Not illegal, but unethical. She was paying herself a caretaker fee that was never authorized. Dad. She'd taken from Dad too. I called Dad that night. He answered on the first ring, his voice shaky. Marley, I need to talk to you. I know, I said quietly. Can you come over? Please. I drove to his house the next morning. He looked older than I remembered, tired and defeated. He had papers spread across the kitchen table, bank statements, receipts, legal documents. I didn't want to believe it, he said. I trusted her. She was the strong one, the responsible one. I sat down beside him and started going through the documents. For hours, we pieced together what Tessa had done. The fees she'd paid herself. The expenses she'd inflated. The small amounts here and there that added up to thousands. I'm sorry, Dad whispered. I should have listened to you. I reached over and squeezed his hand. You didn't know. But inside I was screaming. Because part of me wanted him to have known. Wanted him to have chosen me. Just once, over Tessa. Dad confronted Tessa the next day. I wasn't there, but he told me about it later. She screamed.
She cried.
She denied everything. Then, when denial didn't work, she blamed Mom's illness, blamed stress, blamed me for turning everyone against her. Classic Tessa. When caught, play victim. But Dad had seen the documents. Seen the proof. And for the first time in his life, he couldn't unsee it. He told her she was cut off financially. No more loans. No more help with her mortgage. No more bailouts when her lifestyle exceeded her income. She called me that night sobbing. Are you happy now? You've destroyed everything. I didn't answer. Just let the call go to voicemail. Listened to her spiral through anger and desperation. Saved it. Forwarded it to my lawyer. Over the next few weeks, Tessa's life unraveled quickly. Her husband left. Filed for separation. Apparently, he discovered she'd been hiding debt from him too. Designer clothes. Expensive trips. A lifestyle they couldn't afford. All funded by money that wasn't really hers. Friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. She had to sell her luxury car, the one she'd bragged about for years. Had to downsize from her big house to a small apartment. And through it all, she texted me. Sometimes angry. Sometimes desperate. Sometimes apologetic. But never truly taking responsibility. Please, Marley. I need you. I read the message, stared at it for a long time, then set my phone down. I didn't block her. I just didn't respond. Because silence was more powerful than anything I could say. Weeks later, she showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole, makeup smeared, hair messy, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd humiliated me at that memorial dinner. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. You won, she said, voice shaking. Are you happy? I looked at her calmly. This was never about winning. Then what was it about? Truth, I said simply. She laughed bitterly.
Truth. Right.
Well, congratulations. You destroyed my marriage, my reputation, my life. Hope it was worth it. I took a breath. Centered myself. I didn't destroy anything, Tessa. You did that on your own. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. Her face crumpled. Can I stay here? Just for a few days? I have nowhere else to go. And there it was. The moment I'd been preparing for without knowing it. I looked at my sister standing in my doorway, broken and desperate, asking for help. And I remembered every time she'd made me feel small. Every public humiliation. Every dismissal. Every time she'd taken credit for my ideas or blamed me for her mistakes. I remembered the lockbox in the attic. Mom's letters. The forged signature. The stolen inheritance. The years of gaslighting that made me doubt my own reality. And I made my choice. I went inside and came back with a folded piece of paper. I handed it to her. What's this? She asked. A list of resources. Therapists. Financial advisors. Shelters if you need one. Government assistance programs. Everything you need to get back on your feet. Her face twisted with anger. I don't need a list. I need my sister. No, I said calmly. You need to learn how to take care of yourself. I can't do that for you. After everything I did for you. You didn't do things for me, Tessa. You did things to control me. There's a difference. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned and walked away, crumpling the paper in her fist. I closed the door. Softly. Not with anger. Just with finality. The legal settlement came through 2 months later. I received my full inheritance, plus interest, plus compensation for emotional distress. Tessa was ordered to pay legal fees and was formally banned from accessing any of my financial accounts or information. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it on social media. I just quietly moved forward with my life. I found a new apartment. Nothing fancy, but it had big windows and got great morning light. I started therapy to work through 32 years of being told I was the problem. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost because Tessa had convinced me they were bad influences. And slowly, carefully, I started building a life that was mine. Not a reaction to her. Not defined by her. Just mine. Dad and I had coffee once a week. We didn't talk about Tessa much. Just focused on rebuilding our own relationship. It was awkward sometimes. Painful sometimes. But honest. Finally honest. 6 months after the settlement, I visited Mom's grave. I brought her favorite flowers, yellow roses, and sat on the grass beside her headstone. I found the lockbox, I whispered. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves on the trees around the cemetery. It felt like she was there listening proud. I protected myself, I said. Just like you asked. I stayed for a while, just sitting in the quiet. When I finally stood to leave, I felt lighter. Not because the weight of the past was gone, it would always be part of me, but because I'd finally learned I was strong enough to carry it. I never heard from Tessa again. Not because I blocked her. Not because I refused contact. But because she finally understood she couldn't rewrite my story anymore. I'd taken my narrative back. And that, more than any legal victory, was what truly set me free. A year later, I got promoted at work. My coworkers threw me a small party, nothing fancy, just cake in the break room and genuine congratulations. Jenna hugged me and said, "You deserve this. You've worked so hard." And I believed her, not because I needed validation, but because I'd finally learned to see my own worth. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. My phone was silent. My apartment was peaceful. My life was my own. I thought about Tessa sometimes. Wondered if she'd found her way. Hoped she'd gotten help. But I didn't reach out. Because some relationships aren't meant to be repaired. Some bridges need to burn so you can stop walking back across them. I didn't win by destroying her. I won by finally choosing me. By believing the evidence over her words. By trusting myself when everyone told me I was wrong. By standing up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Mom's words echoed in my mind. Trust yourself. And finally, after 32 years, I did. The truth didn't destroy my family. It revealed what was already broken. And in the wreckage, I found something I'd been searching for my entire life. Freedom. The freedom to be wrong sometimes, to be imperfect, to be human, without someone telling me I was playing the victim for simply existing. I raised my tea to the empty night sky. To truth, I whispered. And to never apologize.